It's a Teen Talks Kitten podcast where I embarrass myself. Hello, and welcome to episode number 127 of the Teen Talks Kitten podcast. My name is Bango, and I hope you guys are all doing very well. I am releasing this episode on the 4th of July, so if you are listening on the day of I'm releasing the episode and you're, in the US, you're an American, happy 4th of July. But yeah, if you're not, I feel like actually it says that a lot of my viewers are not from the US, so but I am, so happy 4th of July. Anywho, before we get started, make sure, of course, you follow, like, and share our Teen Talking podcast so everyone can listen to it and I can get money. Except I don't actually earn any money because it's not that good. It's really not that good of a podcast. But I hope you guys are doing very well. It is so hot right now. I'm telling you, it's so hot, and the AC, I can't have it on because it's actually so loud and it disrupts my voice and recording and everything. So whatever. But I guys are just staying out of the heat. It's so hot. I've seen so many things about new records being broken, and people have heat stroke, unfortunately, and people are really struggling to find solutions and everything. It's so hot, and I feel it too. Hope you guys are all doing very well. Hope you guys are avoiding the heat. Drink lots of water. Maybe even go ice skating. That sounds like a great idea and very related to this podcast. This week I started some summer classes, so yeah, stressed. Hashtag stressed. Not stressed, but something to do, I guess. So I'm a little more productive. But I guys are doing well. And yeah, let's head over to our program of the week. Let's head over to the program of the week. Yeah. Program of the week. Okay, everyone, our program of the week this week is a recent program, a very beautiful program, and this program is an ice dance program. It is Shining Guignard and Marco Fabri from Italy, and their gala performance at the 2026 Winter Olympics in their home country of Italy, obviously. And this program was set to the music of La Cura per Me by Giorgia, an Italian singer. And this program is just so stunning. I mean, I know Yarn and Fabry, they're in love, obviously. I don't know if they're married, but I believe they've been dating for a super duper long time, and obviously they've been ice dance partners for a super long time. But I don't know, this program just gets you all those romantic feelings, gets all those sentiments going, those that's so cute and warm. But I also really love this program because it borrows a lot of elements from previous programs that they've had. And if you've watched them for a long time, as I have, because they're one of my favorite ice dance teams, you see these elements, you're like, oh, that reminds me of that one program. And it's good to have that connection. I feel like it's a great gala. But the song is kind of a slower song, a more powerful ballad kind of song. They start off on opposite ends of the rink, and then they kind of skate in a giant circle, and then they come together. So, they're falling in love and all these things. And beautiful elements. They pick up some speed into their first lift on the chorus of the music. It's she's kind of standing on his knee, and she's kind of in a, I don't know, pirouette position, one leg back, one leg on his knee, and her arms are raised up, and it just feels so loose and free, and it's just so beautiful, and he's holding onto her in such a stable way. It's just so romantic in that way. I don't know. But yeah, what else? Lots of other skating, lots of motions that are right on the music. The hand movements, I feel like from both of them are so free and open and just very loose. And it's just they're just having fun skating. It feels like they're just on a date night or something. Their second lift is probably my favorite lift. Again, it's a lift that's right on the music. But Shannon Guignard, she kind of does a back spiral, if you will. She's kind of leaning back. And then Marco Fabri kind of catches her, and with her arms out, they go into this beautiful rotational lift, that spiral-ish entrance into a beautiful rotational lift. He's catching her, oh, I really love that entrance. I wish people would do that kind of, I don't know, it's an intriguing entrance for sure. It's a very beautiful, unique entrance. I also love the last lift of the program. It's one of the lifts that they did previously at their last Olympics free dance, the Atonement free dance. It was one of my favorites. She's standing on both of his knees, and she's leaning back with her arms kind of powerfully up to the sky. So good. I mean, the shapes that they create on the ice with their lifts, I just feel are so good for Yarn and Fabry. there's kind of a bridge-y moment of the song where she's kind of singing a lot faster, and their head movements, their arm movements are right on the music. When she says "La cura," they're like bam, bam. It's just like it's really good. It's kind of like a character step sequence, I guess, but the character choreographic step sequence. But it's so well done. It's so like on the beat, on everything, and it feels free. Both their arms are just so loose, and they can point here and there, and they can have their hands together or apart. And I just love that kind of program. I love that kind of vibe. But yeah, and the outfits as well, the purple outfits that they borrowed from one of their free dances a couple seasons before, and just the purple color, and then the squares on the lights on the floor, the orange and white. It fits so well. And skating at home obviously in a gala is really special, and it's just I love Yarn Fabry. I think this program is so romantic and so fun to watch. But also it's just like sentimental. It like hits you. But yeah, Guignard Fabry, their 2026 Olympics gala program to La Cura per Me by Georgia. Now let's head over to our main episode, which is a very dramatic one. That was your program of the week. Okay, everybody. So this week in figure skating was definitely a very dramatic week, and I had some stuff to catch up on as well. Last two episodes, we've been talking, of course, about the Grand Prix assignments that just came out 2 weeks ago, talking about the Grand Prix that were happening later this fall. 6 events, 4 disciplines, who I think is going to win everything. And that was super fun and dandy. And I'm definitely not very good at predicting who's going to win things, for sure. I'm not very good at predicting what's going to happen in the figure skating world either, because I truly did not expect some of this news to come out. But yeah, it did. And so this made for, I feel like, a very dramatic week in figure skating during the summer. And lots of things happened. And yeah, and so I'm catching up a lot on this episode. There was the ISU Congress about 3 weeks ago. And in those 3 weeks ago, they were talking a lot about the different things in the sport, what they plan to announce to the sport, or what they did announce to the sport, and what's kind of in the works in the sport. I'm talking today about what they did announce and all the things that were kind of confirmed to have, if you will. But there was more news this week, I believe, on Tuesday. And honestly, let's just get right into it, because the first piece of major, major news, and honestly, I'm not even sure if I want to spend like the whole episode on this, or I kind of want to make it a separate episode, because I think that it's just that much more. It's just it's a topic that I think is just so it's gonna change the sport. It's gonna change the sport entirely, the current state of the sport, if you will. And that is the return of Russian skaters in figure skating, who are going to be allowed to compete in this next season, and obviously presumably seasons after that. This news was announced on Tuesday or Monday or Tuesday, I believe. I saw it first on Reddit by user kindly plate 5785. And so that's the Reddit post I'm going to be referring to in this. But this person, kindly plate 5785, did, quote everything from the ISU article and everything. And so, it's definitely information from the ISU itself. But the post was called Breaking. ISU allows Russian juniors and seniors under AIN status. Now, I will say that this wasn't a complete like 100% shock, because a lot of people did notice earlier that on the ISU app, I guess they were adding information about Russian juniors, because you can search up any skater in the ISU app and look at all their statistics and their scores and all the events they've done. But apparently they were already adding Russian juniors into the ISU app. I don't personally own the app, so I wouldn't necessarily know, but people saw that and reported on Reddit. And so it was presumably the idea that, yes, the ISU is going to allow Russian juniors in, but I guess the seniors were really the big shock. And this detail is really big shock, because before, when Russian juniors were added to the app, ISU was like, shh, we didn't see, you guys didn't see anything, and they didn't say anything, because that's just the ISU, International Skating Union, great at communication. All right, I'm gonna read through this. So, in a gist, yes, Russian skaters are allowed to compete back in figure skating, but that's, definitely not just the top of it. That's only really much the surface level of it. Um, yeah, yeah, that's just really the surface level. But yeah, so kindly plate 5785 says it's both juniors and adults, or seniors, if you will. So pretty much any level of figure skating, I guess, at least that we cover here on the podcast. And so, that does include Junior World Championship, Europeans, the Grand Prix, the Challenger Series, any event just seems, I think, is kind of free to go. Now, I guess I could cover this later, but just to mention it briefly now, these athletes, the Russian athletes, they are allowed to compete in team competitions. And I mean, the World Team Trophy is an option for figure skating and the team event at the Olympics. So, but that's obviously in 4 years. But the World Team Trophy is happening next year in Japan. So they are allowed to compete in team events, which is one thing a lot of people took a lot of issue with, and I will discuss that later. And honestly, I'm just gonna read you like what it says now. I'm gonna tell you what I think and then what other people think at the end. But here's the facts, like just lay out. Here are the facts. Here are the facts. All right. So if you want to compete as if you're a Russian skater and you want to compete on the international stage, you are under AIN status. I believe it is individual neutral athletes, just in French. That's why it's AIN. But individual neutral athletes, which we had at the Olympics with Adelia Petrosian and Peter Gumenik at the Olympics. We had them compete. They were Russian skaters and they were competing there under the AIN status, the individual neutral athlete status. So now moving forward into this next figure skating season, you are allowed to compete as a neutral athlete. You are not allowed to compete as a neutral athlete if you were in the army in Russia or Belarus as well. If you have been part of the war against Ukraine, and if you have supported the war at all, just like publicly supported the war at all. And this is not just like I didn't do any of this, I'm just gonna compete. It is gonna be determined by the ISU themselves, and so yeah. And it can be appealed, which this kindly plate 5785 says that, which that was not the case for the Olympics. So even if they reject you, I guess you could appeal. Every athlete from Russia has to fill out a form they write. I will compete as a neutral athlete. The ISU is in charge of reviewing me. I will follow all ISU rules. I will follow everything. And if I break the criteria, I could get my status revoked. And I wouldn't be able to compete anymore. And I can't provide any wrong information. Okay. So yeah, it does seem very it seems strict for sure. We don't know like how strict they're gonna make things. Is that the thing? But yeah, let's see what else. So restrictions, la 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 la. All right, so that's basically it. So Russian skaters are allowed back if they, have these criteria that they were not fighting for Russia against Ukraine. They have not been supporting the war, at least publicly. And if they go through this very long form about, yes, I will be a neutral athlete, I will follow all the rules, I won't do any doping, and follow all the rules of the sport, and keep my status. And if I break anything, I will not have that status anymore. So they have those, I guess, safeguards in place. So it's not just, every Russian skater is able to compete automatically. There are like protocols that have to be followed, and the ISU is in charge of making those protocols and making those decisions. Like I said earlier, they are allowed to compete in team competitions, which I will get into now. A lot of people I saw in the comments and elsewhere found irritating and myself as well, because if you're having neutral athletes compete together in a team competition, like it's like not it's like everyone knows where they're from, like everyone knows what they represent, they're a team together. It does feel slightly more propaganda like than if you had them just competing individually and they didn't. They're still under the individual neutral athlete flag, the AIN flag, but it's a lot of people are like it's obvious, like it's very obvious that like they are competing for Russia, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? So like what's the point of having a team competition and kind of just using them as a unified team, proving a whole thing. So my decision, not my decision, my opinion, I mean, there's so many different opinions on this, and this is probably why I might make a whole separate episode next week about this. There are so many different opinions on this. Oh my gosh, I cannot speak. I personally disagree with it. I know a lot of people seem to agree with it. A lot of people seem to disagree with it as well. Just to summarize some of the most common ideas going on. Some people agree with it because, they believe politics should be separate from sport. Some people agree with it because they've been wanting to see the Russian skaters back and they don't think the Russian skaters have done anything wrong. At least most of them haven't done anything wrong in relation to the war or in relation to the Russian army or any propaganda at all. Other reasons to agree, there was a common argument, for example, that the ISU should, or the Olympics, the IOC, the ISU, they should also be banning the US and Israel, for example, for also engaging in military conflict and breaking the Olympic truce. The Olympic truce, is that what's called? The Olympic Charter, the Olympic truce. I can't remember. But, the whole thing about you're not supposed to compete or fight a military conflict, I believe, like 14 days after the Olympics end or 21 days after the Olympics end or something like that along those lines. And obviously, the US was involved in Iran and Israel has been involved in Palestine. And so the argument people have been saying, agreeing with, is that, well, if Russia's banned for fighting against Ukraine, then why aren't the US and Israel banned for fighting as well? And that's an argument for sure. But yeah, that was one argument. I wouldn't even say some people didn't even take it as an argument. They just kind of saw it as the reason why the ISU had to do this, because it was kind of a catch 2022 situation, I guess, where it was like, okay, we have to either ban the US and Israel or we have to let Russia back in. And I guess they decided to let Russia back in because politics should be separate from sport, all of this talk about that. Now, if you actually believe politics is separate from sport, that's a whole nother conversation because, yeah. What was the other thing? Politics should be separate from sport. Gosh, I can't remember. There was another argument I was going to bring up. Oh, the Olympic Charter. So a few weeks ago, I want to say there was something about how the Olympic Charter, I guess the Olympic like principles, if you will, had changed their language to really emphasize separating politics from sports. And a few people might have seen that as a hint, a clue that the ISU was going to do this, that the ISU was going to let Russia back in. A lot of people disagree with this as well. Let's talk about some of those reasons. A lot of people have been, disagreeing not just with the political side of things, but with also the doping issues that have been happening in Russia for over a decade now. We all know before the Olympics that Russia was already competing, or before the ban, Russia was already competing under the Russian Olympic Committee instead of their Russian flag. And at the Worlds, they were the figure skating Federation of Skating in Russia or something like that, because they were not allowed to identify under the Russian flag at all because of their historic systemic doping issues that have happened in Russia. A lot of people disagreed with the allowance of Russians back because that was clearly an issue, and that was still an issue back in 2022, right before they got banned with the Kamila Valieva case, of course, which is still, like, I don't know, in the air, in the works. Nobody even knows anymore about the Kamila Valieva case. A lot of people just disagree because Russia obviously has started a war against Ukraine, illegally invaded Ukraine, and they should not be they should not be funding they should not be having their athletes represent them on the world stage because of that. A lot of people pointed out that Russian skaters are historically more sponsored by the government than skaters from the US, for example, and that more money comes from them to skate and represent their country. And so that could be taken as representing their country, aligning themselves with their country's values, etc. Um, yeah, those are some of the common things people disagreed on. Again, if I talk about this next week, I for sure will make even more detail on it. But it's such a complicated topic, and I've seen so many different opinions on it. Again, I personally disagree with this. But yeah, now I did want to point out that user Trick Ad 80, who is Finnish, wrote a post a few hours later than kindly plate 5785 did, and Trick Ad 80, that user from Finland apparently, saying that Russian athletes will not be able to compete in Worlds in 2027, which will be in Finland, in Tampere, and they cannot compete at Worlds in 2027 because Finland does not allow any Russians to come into the country. There was a whole thing about explaining about how even if a Russian athlete got a visa from the like the EU to be able to travel to Finland, no guarantee that, you know, Finland would even accept that. There are like different exceptions that even if you got your visa from so and so country, you're not able to go into this country even if it's within that Schengen area where there are no borders, if you will, within the EU, within the countries associated with the EU. Finland is apparently very, 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 very strict on, you know, their anti-Russian policy. They have publicly supported Ukraine a lot, and you know, if a Russian athlete tried to compete in Finland, this user trick ad 80 said that it would cause like huge uproar, huge chaos in Finland, and yeah, yeah, so it would look really bad for Finland, and yeah, and so I guess they won't be able to compete in Worlds in 2027 unless, of course, something happens, unless, of course, something changes, um, and in terms of all the policy that Finland currently has. So that's something of note. Obviously, that might change, and I will definitely, you know, keep you posted on that. But as for now, Russians probably very much more than probably cannot compete at Worlds in 2027. But we are, you know, far away from that in 2020 for Worlds in 2027. So yeah. So that was the biggest news of the week for sure. I mean, I was pretty shocked when I saw it. I was like, what the heck? I mean, I kind of knew it was coming again because of the whole Russian juniors added to the ISU app thing and the whole Olympic charter politics are separate from sport thing. I kind of did expect this coming, and a lot of people have been saying that they thought this was coming anyway, that they thought after a whole Olympic quad without the Russians, like the ISU is gonna like let them in again and all this stuff. Like, I don't really know, but obviously I'm a little displeased about it. Very displeased about it. But that is just the reality of the sport, and we'll have to see where all of this goes. But yeah, I mean, we don't know where it could go, really. All right, so I did do an episode about, you know, like the potential, I guess, changes in figure skating about 2 months ago. This is a kind of continuation of that, but not at the same time. So in April, I did an episode about here's all the rumors, I guess, and rumors and thoughts and ideas apparently from the ISU or other people associated with the sport in terms of what could be changed in figure skating. Now that the ISU Congress has happened, they have, you know, confirmed some of the changes and confirm that these are going to be implemented either this season or in the next few seasons or in the next decade, if you will. These are not just rumors that came from the ISU or whatever. This really did come from the ISU Congress, other announcements, other official announcements from experts and everything. And I got this from user Reach Comprehensive 90 who reposted at Skate Takes FS from Instagram onto Reddit. So if you didn't know, the ISU has a congress. I don't know how often, every 2 years, every 4 years, but they do a big one after every Olympic cycle. Back in 2022, for example, the ISU Congress, I think was in Thailand that year or something. That was the ISU Congress where they decided to raise the minimum age limit for seniors up to 17, which was a huge deal at the time. This ISU Congress took place in Tenerife in Spain, which I find kind of ironic because Tenerife is a very tropical, definitely humid, hot place where the International Skating Union has probably no ice to be around. The same thing in Thailand, right? Thailand has not much ice infrastructure either. So I guess they just like to go to fun places to have these ISU congresses. But this year's Congress again took place in Tenerife over, I think, like a week and a half in the beginning of June, and it's the beginning of July now, and I haven't really talked about it. So yeah, I reposted, or I'm taking this information again from user Reach Comprehensive 90, who took it from Skate Takes FS on Instagram. But some of the new things, gosh, let me see. Some of the new things that happened, these are from other users. Let me see. Some of the other things that happened. 6 jumps in the free skate is a new rule that is being introduced. So you will have 6 jumping passes in the free skate. Same thing with the Zayak rule. You're only allowed to repeat 2 of those jumps. You only have 2 combos now. So it's really just been a combo that's been taken out of um, the protocol, if you will. So you're only having 2 combos in the free skate now as opposed to 3 combos in the free skate. Say what you will, my personal opinion, I liked having 7 jumps in the free skate. I just think it was a really good number. I feel like it made programs feel balanced, even though it was usually 4 in the first half, 3 in the second half. I just thought the 7 was a really good number. I don't know about 6. I feel like I like that little bit of unevenness and throughout the program. But that's my opinion. Second thing is the Euler is no longer considered a jump, and so that opens up room for essentially 4 jump combinations or 3 jump combinations where the Euler is not counted as a jump, if you will. So you could, for example, do now a triple flip Euler, which will not be a jump. Triple flip Euler, triple salchow, cal, double axel. That's a legal jumping pass now in the free skate, not in the short program. Because the triple flip would be a jump, the triple sal would be a jump, and the double axel would be a jump, but the Euler would no longer count as a jump. So yeah, get ready for some definitely crazy combos because of course with the removal of one jumping pass, skaters will be wanting to maximize those points as much as possible, and definitely putting in some crazy combos that score a lot is something that is gonna definitely help them. There's also a new requirement. Instead of 3 spins, I mean you still have 3 spins, but one of the spins is being replaced with a required choreographic spin. I am still unsure. I'm still confused, honestly, even as a so-called expert in the sport, which I'm definitely not an expert. I'm still really confused on what the choreographic spin entirely entails because it just seems like a regular spin based on what I saw, though with some prettier positions, with some prettier arm movements or something. But it's supposed to be kind of like a choreographic sequence, but in a spin, if you will. Which I don't know. I kind of liked having 3 spins, and that was kind of it. All right, there's some new new rules in terms of judging and citizenship, which I took from 2 other users. For citizenship rules, user kindly play 5785. I'm just gonna quote directly from what they posted on the ISU. Previously, it was sufficient for one athlete in a pair to have lived in the new country for at least 1 year, while the other athlete only needed to be a citizen of any ISU member country. Under the new rules, at least one partner must hold citizenship of the country they represent, and the other partner must have continuously resided there for at least 180 years during the previous calendar year. So I am kind of confused on this. So this has to do with new ISANS partners and new pairs partners, because oftentimes you can't find a partner in your country, so you team up with someone from the US, or you team up with someone from another country, and now you want to compete for one of those countries that you're from. And so under these new rules, supposedly, apparently, so one of you has to have citizenship. One partner has to have the citizenship of the country, whatever you want to represent, and the other person has to continuously live there for at least 180 years. I'm kind of confused on this still. I'm not gonna lie, because the other one was a citizen of any ISU athlete country. So the main thing is that like you have to specifically be a citizen of the country you're representing. You can't just be a citizen of any country you're representing. So let's say, for example, that I was someone from the US and I want to skate with someone from Canada, and my partner had Canadian citizenship. So if I want to skate from someone from Canada, that would fulfill the rule. That would fulfill the rule of, the person having citizenship. The Canadian partner would have citizenship. My Canadian partner would have citizenship. However, it would also be required for me to live in Canada for at least 1 year back then, okay? But now, okay, I guess I'm explaining this really bad. Okay, let's say me and the Canadian partner wanted to represent the UK. Under previous rules, we could, I guess, represent the UK because it really didn't matter. One of us would have to live in the UK for a year. The other person could be a citizen of any country. So it could be the Canadian citizen as long as I lived in the UK for at least a year. Under the new rules, at least one of us has to actually become a British citizen before representing. So this is a little different because at the Olympics, for example, it's always been you have to have citizenship of the country you're representing. But now we're saying like in all ISU competitions, you have to be a citizen of that country that you're representing. And so that does change things significantly for pairs and ice stands. Again, I'm not super into pairs and ice stands. I don't know. But that is something to consider. All right. Now we have some judging changes from user IDWTPAUN, IDWTPAUN, who let's make this clear. The ISU is considering, and I mean considering the use of AI in judging. Not in judging, but using AI to evaluate how judges do and specifically track bias and track national bias. Though I will say the AI is apparently really bad. They did like a live demonstration, and I think the jump was a triple axel or something that I showed on the screen, and the AI thought it was a triple flip. So yeah, but it will apparently make judges better at analyzing their own bias, helping whoever is controlling the judges, picking the judges, selecting the judges to see like which judges are the most biased, which ones you know have some implicit bias and like internal bias. The judges will be monitored more closely, which can only be good, right? Like I am worried again, like anytime AI comes up, I'm like, no, like I'm so like worried. I feel like anytime like AI comes up and I'm just like, no, it's like a big buzzword for me, right? I'm like scared of it. Um but yeah, and apparently, like, I don't know, the AI not knowing the difference between the triple flip and the triple axle is a little concerning. Again, I don't know what like AI model they're using. I don't know where they're getting the AI. Like, how are they making the AI specific to figure skating and specific to figure skating judging? Who actually knows? Um, I do agree that bias is an issue in figure skating. I mean, there's been some crazy posts out there where, like, oh my gosh, judge from country A, like, they gave their skater from country A, like, way, way more points than the rest of the judges did. And they tanked some of the scores from skaters from country B and C. Like, we've all seen those, I feel like, where the judges are a little suspicious and, like, wow, that's like 5 more points than the other judges gave. And you're from the country, like, as the same country as the skater, so like, there's been things like that. I don't know like why AI specifically is being used to evaluate judges. Um, I believe they said actually in terms of the national bias that they were taking inspiration from gymnastics or something to prevent the national bias and the block bias and everything from happening. So yeah, rocker skating said that rocker skating Jackie Wong, go follow him, everything said that the issue wasn't really national bias, but also block bias. So, for example, skaters, country judges from Western Europe are very likely to score well for to give higher scores from skaters from Western Europe in general. And so it's not just like a one country problem; it's like a regional problem, like block bias in that way. And spear skating itself as a judge sport, of course, you're gonna have these issues in judging. Sometimes extremely obvious, sometimes not so obvious. I'm really intrigued in this whole AI thing and seeing like what is the AI gonna do? Are we gonna see a future one day where AI truly does take over figure skating itself? I don't know. I don't know. It's gonna be something. It's really gonna be something. Are we gonna see that future? Who knows? I remember making an episode actually about AI and figure skating I don't know, maybe like a year ago. So I remember it was called like ChatGPT on Ice or something. So if you want to go listen to that, you totally can. But I am, always suspicious of AI, and I feel like especially recently, there's been a whole movement about like all like the cooling centers for the servers and everything, and all this like new information about the harms of AI are coming out. So like it just makes me steer even more away from AI being used in figure skating and in life in general. So, but yeah, again, judging changes from user IDWTPAUN, IDWTPAUN. So yeah, that's a piece of information. Okay, now let's move back to the Reddit post shared by, uh, Reach Comprehensive 90, again shared by the Instagram account Skate Takes FS. Um yeah, let's go back to some of those announcements. New events. New events. I don't remember, oh my gosh, what is it? Let me search this up. Grand Prix. So one of the things they are going to add, supposedly, in I don't know exactly when. Okay, in the next season, so the season after this season is Grand Prix semifinals. So of course right now we have the 6 Grand Prix from October to November, and then whatever skaters score the best in those Grand Prix in terms of their placement, and then the ranking points that they get from those placements, they can qualify. The top 6 in every discipline will qualify for the Grand Prix final in December. That ends off, the fall half of the season. I kind of get this idea of having a Grand Prix semifinal. I get it, but I don't get it. Supposedly this will make this season longer until April. This will add another what is it, another event that skaters have to go to, of course, and so that will push things back later until April, I guess. So I'm assuming what they want is like Grand Prix or maybe now late September to early November, Grand Prix semifinals in mid to late November, and then the Grand Prix final in December. But I also saw some theory that they wanted to put the Grand Prix final in what was it, in like February, which I also feel like is a really weird thing because I associate the Grand Prix with the fall half of the season. So if we had a season go all the way to August, like when are we gonna do Four Continents and Europeans? Like March, and then like Worlds would be in April? Like, I don't know. Sorry, I make season longer until April, not August. April. Um I get it, but I don't get it. Again, adding another event just tired skaters out. Like they're already competing at so many events. Like why? Second thing is that I guess a good side of it is that maybe more people get to qualify and reach a bigger event. I mean, we've had all those things where the top 6 skaters are going to Grand Prix final, and then your favorite is the first alternate. Your favorite was 7th in the Grand Prix standings, and they didn't get to qualify for the Grand Prix final. But if they did qualify for the Grand Prix final, they totally would have a huge chance at getting some huge success. And the reason why they're not there is just they had one bad competition, they had one bad Grand Prix event, one bad skate that wasn't the best. I don't know about this whole Grand Prix final semifinal idea. I don't know. Maybe they could just expand the Grand Prix final itself to include 10 skaters, maybe. The top 10 skaters in the Grand Prix get to make the Grand Prix final instead of the top 6. But I do like how the current Grand Prix final is kind of exclusive. It's only the top 6 in the Grand Prix from across the season. And so I feel like that is something kind of cool, kind of interesting. It's the most exclusive. Almost, it feels sometimes more prestigious than Worlds even, because it's like, okay, you have to do good at 2 previous events to even get to the Grand Prix final. And so sometimes in that way, it just feels very exclusive, very interesting, very special of an event. And that's, something interesting, something really cool about it. But I also sometimes we see, skaters that medal at Worlds, but we didn't get to see them at the Grand Prix final. And so maybe it just adds more opportunity for skaters who, have potential to have a second chance maybe. And maybe they did pretty good at their 2 Grand Prix, but maybe they need that second chance to skate in the semifinal or something. I don't know. Maybe the semifinal will be like, like these top 3 skaters have already qualified for the Grand Prix final. I kind of like that. The top 3 have already qualified for the Grand Prix final, but the 3 that didn't make it, and then the 3 alternates are going to compete in the Grand Prix semifinals in order to compete for a spot in the Grand Prix finals. I don't know. That adds another event, I feel like, and I just feel like it's a little unnecessary and not so cool and fun. Like, where would they do these semifinals? Would they be in the same city as the Grand Prix final? Would it be the same week as the Grand Prix final? Would skaters have to skate like 4 times in 1 week? Like, what are we really talking about here? What are we really talking about here? I think it's one of those things like we want more information before we truly can make a solid opinion. Maybe this is just a huge money making scheme, and the ISU just hopes that this will add more interest to the sport. I get it though, like in other sports, there's this whole big thing about like the brackets, and oh my gosh, so and so defeated so and so, they qualified to the final, they did this match. I get it. I feel like there's kind of appeal in that in terms of like a tournament bracket style of like, let's qualify to the final. But figure skating doesn't work like that. And so I'm really interested in like, are they gonna have like 1v1s between skaters? Like, no way. Like no way that they're gonna do that. So I'm really interested in this whole semifinal business. I think it's quite an interesting thing indeed. All right, let's talk about an event, sorry, that we actually have a lot more information about that is happening again in the 2027-2028 season, which just seems to be the ISU's season of experimentation, if you will. But in the 2027-2028 season, the ISU is planning a combined world championship and they're calling it Beijing 28, which is pretty cool. I will say Beijing 28 sounds cool to me, I guess. But this will be combining all of the ISU sports. So figure skating will be there, synchronized skating will be there, short track speed skating will be there, and the regular speed skating, the long track speed skating will be there. This was something that I discussed again 2 months earlier in the episode about this like rumored combined world championships between all the ISU sports. Like, and now it's actually been confirmed that they are going to do this at least just in 2028. It's going to be a test run. I feel like it's going to be a little bit of a test. And I'm not saying that it couldn't work. I'm not saying that we're all right and this sucks. This idea is horrible. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it's a little out of the blue. I do feel like this idea has a lot of pros, but I feel like it has maybe more cons. And the consensus right now, I feel like is pretty negative against this idea. But it's happening in the middle of the quad, so it's like a test run. So at least it's not happening when it's really important, like 2029, for example, which will be really important for qualification, of course, to the Olympic. So at least it's not happening then. At least it's happening in 2028, which I feel like the middle of the quad is probably the least important year, maybe. And so we'll have to see. So again, all four ice sports that the ISU works under. Pros, I think maybe that this saves money for the ISU. Of course, it's really expensive to have 4 different world championships in 4 different cities, maybe 4 different venues, and maybe not make enough money for them all. So maybe it saves a lot of money from for the ICU, right? And I think they're really banking on, oh, like I really like figure skating, but at the same event, short track speed skating is happening. So maybe I'll be interested in that as well. Maybe the ISU is hoping for some coalition building between these 4 sports, some like shared interest between these 4 sports, and hoping some fans of one will go to another event, buy the tickets for that event so they can make some money, things like that. I think in general, there's just a lot of hype around this kind of concept, like the ultimate combo of all these ice sports, except hockey. There's no hockey, but the ultimate combo of these ice sports. There's gonna be figure skating, synchronized skating, short track speed skating, all in one city, all in these arenas around the city. It's gonna be a cool idea. Beijing is also, of course, a really big city, lots of a very touristy city. There's lots of interest, lots of different fans. I believe China is really good at speed skating. They have a long history of speed skating success, and so that's something to note as well. So they're really banking on this like hype interest. This is a cool idea. You guys should love this. And maybe it saves them money and hopefully they make more money from this like shared interest between the sports. So yeah, that's kind of like the pros of it. And it could go really well. I'm telling you again, this could go really well. All right, like let's talk about some cons. I think a lot of people have a lot of cons, lots of gripes, just in general, like dislike for this idea. Like, why? Because, like, really, like figure skating is its own sport, synchronized skating is its own sport. Maybe short track speed skating and speed skating are related enough to be able to put together. But figure skating is its own sport. Synchronized skating is definitely related to figure skating more than the other 2 sports. So maybe it's just better to have a combined figure skating and synchronized skating kind of thing, but I think there's just a lack of interest between the disciplines in general. I feel like my metaphor inside my head is that it's like putting like FIFA and the NFL together, just because both of those sports, soccer and football, are played on grass. Like it's like putting like figure skating and short track skating together just because they're both on the ice. Like, yeah, and of course they're both run by ISU, and the ISU is no FIFA and it's no NFL. So leave it at that. But yeah, there is kind of a lack of interest between the disciplines, I guess, which is maybe an issue. Maybe it won't go as well as the ICU hopes because there won't be as many people saying, yeah, I want to attend this event and this event and watch this event and watch this event, and they're all from different sports. Don't know if that's gonna happen. Don't know if that's gonna happen. Um, what was I gonna say? Yeah. Another big con is that only a few cities can host it. Of course, for example, when we go to the Olympics, for example, figure skating and short track speed skating often share the exact same rink. There's very few cities around the world that have the infrastructure, few places around the world that have the infrastructure to host the Olympics. A lot of them end up having to build new facilities and have synthetic snow and synthetic ice, and they have to do all this like marketing, and they have to do this like huge projects to make sure there's enough rings, to make sure all the events will go smoothly, things like that. So I guess the worry with figure skating is that only a few cities can host it. Whereas with Worlds, you really only need one, really big arena, one ice skating rink, because figure skating is the only competition that's going to happen. But if we're having synchro and figure skating and short track speed skating and speed skating all together at one world championship, like no way that we can complete all of that in one figure skating rink, one giant ice skating rink. And the sizes of the rinks are different for short track and regular speed skating. That's another big issue. So there's a lack of infrastructure that just makes hosting this kind of event um, less accessible. But obviously, Beijing, that hosted the Olympics, has the infrastructure, has the experience as well. It's really important to host this kind of event. I do think again having it in 2028 is like a perfect time to have it. So it's a test run, right? At least it's not early in the quad. It's not like the very first season where everyone's still dipping their toes into the water kind of thing. But it's not also 2029 and we're having to decide Olympic spots, but there's all this other chaos going on. I think 2028 is a good thing. They're testing it in the middle of the quad instead of earlier or later. And it's going to be a test run. I think it's a good time to have a test run. And, I think we could be proved wrong. I'm kind of open to this whole idea for some reason. I'm faintly optimistic, if you will, that maybe this will work. Maybe this truly will work. And we'll all be like, oops, we thought it wouldn't. I don't know. So that's going to be interesting. And again, it doesn't maybe have to turn into a yearly thing. Maybe it is going to be like it's always going to be in the middle of quad. Just have one season per Olympic cycle where this season we're going to have a combined world championships. Maybe that's the idea. Maybe it's not an annual thing they're trying to hold, but we don't know. All right, and then the last kind of big news, I guess, is more happy news in my opinion, is that they finally decided they were looking for a country, a place, a city, people willing to host the 2027 Four Continents Championships. Last season we had it in Beijing, we've had it in Seoul, we had it Shanghai, we've had it in Colorado Springs. And so it usually gets traded around between a few different countries. I think the US has hosted Four Continents, Canada has hosted it, Japan, China, South Korea, and Taiwan has hosted Four Continents. I don't know if any other countries have hosted Four Continents. Australia was supposed to host it once, but little thing called the coronavirus. But they just announced that the 2027 Four Continents will be held in Astana in Kazakhstan, which is super exciting. Kazakhstan has never hosted a championship event before, a Worlds, Four Continents, or a World Junior Championship. Kazakhstan as well has hosted a Challenger Series, the Dennis 10 Memorial. But this is a really good opportunity. Of course, they just had an Olympic victory in the men's event with Mikhail Shaidarov's win for Kazakhstan. And so I think having this really big event in Kazakhstan right after that win is great to help grow skating in the country. More skaters coming out of Kazakhstan it's always going to be a great thing. I know it's one of those centers of development for the ISU that they really want to expand skating in the Central Asia region. And so I'm really happy that Kazakhstan, Astana is getting their first championship event, something new, a new place to go to. Good expansion into a country that has had a couple of smaller events, but a championship is like way bigger. And I'm really happy to see it. I hope, of course, I think Mikhail Shadorov is going to compete there. Maybe he's going to win at home. We'll see. We'll see some of the other skaters from Kazakhstan as well. And yeah, I hope it turns out to be a really big event. We'll have to see who competes at Fort Continents because it's always kind of like, is this person competing? We don't know. It's always kind of a mixed bag who goes to Four Continents, who decides to go to Four Continents. So we'll have to see who actually goes to compete at Four Continents, and that will be pretty exciting. But I think that's kind of it. I know that was a ton of news. The Russians returning, new ISU rules, AI and judging, the jumping passes, the 2028 Beijing Grand Prix semifinals, Astana for Four Continents. But that was basically all the important points I remembered. I'm sure that there were things I missed out of the last month or so of figure skating news, but those were like the most major points that I remembered. The most major points that I remembered. We will have to see what comes up in the figure skating world in this next month. Again, I don't know what I'm going to record next week, but it might be something about, Russian skaters and who will be eligible and kind of my thoughts and other people's opinions I see. I might end up like searching through Reddit, quoting people on Reddit, trying to see who has said what, all the agreements, all the disagreements. I think that's going to be it's going to change the sport. It's going to change the sport entirely. And so that's really the focus in figure skating world right now. But July is usually again the emptiest month for figure skating content. So we'll have to see what else comes up in the figure skating world. But yeah, thank you so much for listening to this episode of a Teen Talk Skating podcast. My name is Zango. I hope you enjoyed me ranting about all of the recent figure skating news in the figure skating world. And I will hear from you guys next week for a probably interesting episode on the return of Russians in figure skating and all this other drama going on in this crazy sport of ours. I will hear from you guys next week, and bye bye.